Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 183. Thanks for being here. I hope you're doing well. I am very pleased to be sharing today's interview with you. I'm speaking with London-based artist and educator Lee Putman. Art and creativity have been with Lee from a very young age, and his current practice focuses on weaving together storytelling and visual art with his platform Facts and Fineliners. Lee's got such an enthusiastic and engaging way of talking about art. I honestly smiled for 2 days straight after having this conversation, and that's why I can't wait to share it with you now. Let's listen. Lee, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me here. It's very cool.
I love to go back in people's history and just kind of pick apart like where the origins of their passions come from. And in your case, a passion for art and a passion for nature and for animals. And I'd love to hear about childhood Lee. Did you have a pen in your hand right from the start?
Yeah, childhood Lee. Yeah, I loved art. Yeah, I think my earliest memory was primary school. So over here we have it when I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but we have primary school and secondary school. Primary school is year 1 to 6, so you're probably age 5 to 10, I believe. And somewhere in primary school, I remember getting really excited on a Friday afternoon for art lesson and just running through the classroom screaming, saying, "It's art day!" and just going nuts. And that's like the earliest. But I think it probably wasn't until like late secondary school that I realized that it was something that I actually like to focus on and concentrate on.
And you just followed that? Did you go to art school?
Yeah, I did go to art school. Well, in terms of just followed it, it's weird because in secondary school, it was basically it was a bit of an accident or kind of a happy accident. So in secondary school, in year 7 to 9, so you're 11 to 14, you do year 7, 8, and 9, and you're basically just kind of doing secondary school. And then at the end of year 9, you pick your specialist subjects that you're going to do your GCSEs and your exit exams. And for some reason, I don't know why, but you were only allowed to do, obviously a certain amount, but you're only allowed to do one creative. So it was either music or art.
Really?
Yeah, it was really frustrating. And I liked both. But the only reason I picked art was just because the art teacher seemed to be more enthusiastic about me. That was literally it. So I just went, okay, cool, yeah, I'll just do art instead. And I could always draw quite well, or at least through secondary school. But like it was only because around about 14-ish, that was the first time where I would go and I'd be out with my mum and I'd buy a book on drawing. I'd go home and I'd just try and copy whatever it was. And then my art teacher noticed I was enthusiastic, and then she kind of picked up on it. I performed really badly. I'm terrible for coursework and planning. I still am, even as I teach a couple of days in the college. I'm the worst at it. But I did like no coursework, but I did 3 drawings that were just that happened to be particularly good. Yeah, and it got me a B grade. And then after that, I realized I was like, all right, cool. This is the only thing I want to do. I wanted to go to college and do art. So it wasn't an art college. It was just the subject at college. But I failed my GCSEs. I got 4 out of like 11 or something like this. It was terrible. And I just being a bad student in secondary school. And so I didn't get the grades required to go into college. So I had to do another year in school where like I just had to go. Exactly, yeah. It was like you had to retake maths or whatever. But you couldn't just do that. You had to take another subject. And I think it was like sports science or something like this. And I had no interest in it. I just picked whatever my mates were doing. And I said to the teacher at the top of the year, I said, look, like, I don't want to do any work. All I want to do is pass my maths to go to art college. So I'm just going to sit at the back of the class. I won't interrupt. I won't bother you. I'm going to fail. I'm just doing maths. And he goes, okay, cool. So I just, and then every now and then if they were talking about something interesting, I'd
lift your head.
Lift my head, listen, involve, and then just go back to studying maths. Got it, went to college, passed that, and then went to university to do I did fine art and illustration at college. Loved it. Did illustration at university. Had a mad time, good and bad. Got my foundation degree. Went to go do the BA. Dropped out, and then just lived the rest of my life until I decided to pick up art again.
That is really interesting. So when you say live the rest of your life, you went into a career that was more mainstream?
No, well, kind of, yes and no. I basically, at 16, when I went to go back to school, I bumped into a mate who I hadn't seen for the whole of summer holidays. I said, what have you been doing? He goes, I've been to these breakdance classes. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, well, that sounds really cool, of course. And I'd already been doing a little bit of waving and popping in class to try and show off to my mates or whatever. So I went there, loved it. And I kind of during college, I started to develop an interest in the competitive circuit of street dance. So it's kind of like battle culture, we call it. And then it just so happened that in my town, there happened to be the hosting of this kind of national event called Hip Hop International. And then the winners would go to, I think it was Vegas or something like this, or something at the time. But you'd have to pay for yourself. So I didn't end up going. But I entered it just to see how I'd get on, and I won. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, I want to do more of this. Like, winning is great, and dancing and meeting people. And I hadn't met anyone outside of my town in Watford, that's where I'm from, North West London, that had done this before. So I kind of met people and started traveling a little bit. So through end of school, 2 years in college, and then 2-3 years at university, doing the foundation degree, I just started traveling a lot in the UK and then in Europe, just to go to competitions, to either watch or compete. I did quite well. And then at the time I was in university, I always say this to lower the tone a little bit, had pretty poor mental health, which was, it was difficult to manage. But at the same time, I was doing a dance TV show called Got to Dance. It was on it was pretty fun, man. But I didn't, basically, I would say this, I didn't understand that it was a TV show, not a dance competition. So, so I basically the producers were having a nightmare to try and like get me to do the things they wanted me to do. And I was like, no, I want to express myself. And obviously it's just about views and money and whatever. So I got like, you could say embarrassed on national television. Like my mum was in the audience and I was just like, oh, this sucks. So I dropped out of uni. But at the same time, I did quite well on the show. And then an agent picked me up and just said, look, like, I've got a job for you immediately. Like, it's a few grand a month doing on this cruise ship stuff, and then come back and we'll get you some other like commercials or whatever. And I said, okay, cool, like, let's do that. So then I just worked, I think, for like 2-3 years as a dancer. Then in an energy company for 4 years. My mental health dipped even more. I left, and then basically at the end of the 4 years, I just said to my I met my missus when I was like 25, and I was with her for a couple of years, and then I said, who I'm still with now, but after a couple of years, I just said to her, look, man, this sucks. I'm unhappy. I just want to do something creative. I can't do this anymore in it. And she just said, okay, cool, let's do it. And I said, all right, cool, let's figure it out. So we moved back in with her mum, and then and then I just figured out this whole art thing, and that was around 27. And then for the last like 7 years, I've just been figuring it out. That's like a brief history.
Yeah. That she was there to say, hey, I can see that this is the direction you need to go in, and how can we figure that out together is just so beautiful. And to be doing that step by step. So there's so many things in the story I just adore. But let's talk about art combining with street dance, because you actually, I've seen online your paintings of the street dance itself and the dynamism of that and the movement, painting the movement of the street dance. Let's talk about that first, where you're combining these two passions. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'll tell you what, I can move the webcam. I know they won't see this, but you can see that's one of them.
Oh,
and then I've got
that. That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Is it oil?
Yeah, oils and like mixed media. So it's like mostly oils, and then you've got like spray paints, like and then
Amazing.
Whatever I can, if I can use like different materials or whatever I've got in the studio at the time, just to, because I paint quite realistically, but I get a bit frustrated at kind of things getting too neat. So I quite like to just mess it up. Just like literally whatever I can reach at the time, I just use and I scribble on it. But so basically that's been a long process of mixing dance with my image making, I'll say. But it's only because I've been so resistant to this stuff, because I'm such a contrarian idiot that people will give me fantastic ideas and I'll just constantly say, no, I don't want to do it because that's not how I want to do it. And basically over the years, everyone kept saying, oh, you should mix dance and art. Yeah. You should mix dance and art, and everyone had these really, I say it quite offensively, but everyone had these really boring ideas. Everyone said, oh, you should put like a canvas on the floor and put like paint on your feet and step it and move around. And I just thought, that's so boring, man. Like that's the first thing that everyone thinks of. And every time I see it, everyone is doing some kind of like gliding or spinning and round and holding a utensil and making marks on a canvas. And then
I've seen that too.
Right. And it's just like, as a performance, I'm like, oh, it's interesting. But as a piece of work, I just think it's so boring, man. And which it may not be, but it's just my opinion in it. And I've been resistant to it because I just kept thinking, cool, when I get a good idea, I'll go for it. But I never really gave it any thought. And then a friend of mine, Clara, French dancer, she was talking to me one day and she goes, oh, you should mix dance and art. And I kind of rolled my eyes and I went, nah, like obviously. And I repeated to her what I've just said to you.
Yeah.
And she's so brilliant. She goes, no, you idiot. She goes, just display through movement.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, yeah, that makes way more sense. You're right. I didn't think of image making as movement. It's not a static thing. Because it's like the image is a record of the movement that you have, and you can display things through movement. I thought, yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about art or image making as movement before. And she implanted that idea, and then I basically just kind of started running with this idea of how do I mix dance and art if I think of both of them as movement?
Yes. And
then I started to think about how I do things, and then it kind of took me from sitting at my desk drawing, kind of leaning hunched over, drawing things, to kind of sitting a bit more upright, putting things on a side, standing up and drawing, and realizing that I like to make art with music on. I like to dance in between and all this stuff. And then it became a very physical practice. And then I kind of thought about how to encapsulate that and capture it in the image and get that feeling of movement. And then I done a few iterations of it, like the one I just shown you, where it's like this kind of this like multi-layered person. I've got a few more as well, but it's mixing images and mixing aesthetics, but to kind of create this illusion of movement somehow, but this kind of distortion to it as well. Like you're not really sure how to make sense of it. And specifically, that's because the dance style that I've been so kind of passionate about in street dance is popping. And so street dance, just for a bit of history, is an umbrella term for, you could say, all dances created by African and Hispanic diasporas in just kind of in street environments. There's probably a way better definition than that, but I would say the kind of the modern version or street dance from kind of the 70s onwards. And this street dance that I like is popping, and a lot of it came from mime, so Marcel Marceau. And then there was another guy, I can never remember his name, West Coast America, but he kind of done a lot of mime with robot and animation, and then that was kind of adopted into the funk dancers at the time to music, and then it kind of created this robot dance style, and then a lot of it was very illusion based. And that illusion to me is like magic, but with your body. And I love that.
Love it.
And it's so cool, man. And so I want to try and replicate that kind of illusion with your body, but on canvas. And then now I've realized that I quite enjoy video making and filmmaking as well. So I've been, and obviously with Facts and Fine Liners, I've kind of found, at least I would say, or I'm finding my own way of telling stories, I would say, with my art. And I'm trying to incorporate more video with the dance stuff, but I've kind of separated the two practices. So with the Facts and Fine Liners stuff, it's my kind of, you could say loosely, like a commercial practice. And then the dance stuff is like my contemporary practice, where I just kind of, I'm not in any rush to make a piece of work anytime soon. I just take it very slowly. I just think about it for months on end, and then I make 5 pieces at once and don't make another piece for a year, you know, like it's kind of
more of it's more like of a personal thing rather than putting out the next thing for your audience.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I would say like that's probably a really good way to describe it, because it's all for me. Because I realized with the mental health kind of problems that I went through, I can't do things that I'm not interested in.
Yes.
So everything that I do is something that I'm really interested in. So the curiosity of each subject matter that I put out for Facts and Fineliners, for the videos that I put out, it's just because I really am interested in learning about that thing at the time.
Yeah.
So but I have this quite a strong view on how art, if art's being displayed for people to look at, it should consider how the audience is consuming it. For me, like I'll happily talk about more of that later, but that's what I kind of really try and focus on with Facts and Fineliners, is accommodating the audience to be able to view the art and engage with it. Like the engaging with the story about the art is really important to me. And I have that same thing with the dance stuff, but I haven't really figured out nor really taken the time to care about who the audience is with that stuff yet.
Yeah,
at the moment,
that makes sense.
You know, my favorite, my kind of priority at the moment is making sure that I like it, and making sure that the people that I'm representing, which is my street dance community, like it, because I've been a part of them for about 15, 18 years now, around roughly that time. And I've built so many relationships within that community that have taught me so many things about myself that I think all I want to do is make sure that I can give something back, and if I can represent them in a fine art context or a contemporary art context where they can be seen as artists and seen as true creatives, you know, rather than just kind of people that you kind of shove to the side or whatever. It's that's really important to me.
Yeah, then you've done a service to them. Yeah,
exactly, and getting them to feel like they can be represented by someone that they trust as well. You know, so yeah,
that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Let's talk about Facts and Fineliners, because that's how I first came to your work, and it's a pretty spectacular and unique thing that you're doing. So you put out videos, TikTok and Instagram, and now moving into YouTube. But the TikTok and Instagram are they're just so tidy. Like they're little snippets, and it's not only a snippet of art, but it's a snippet of information. I'd love for you to describe it in your own words.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to. I'm learning how to describe it in my own words right now. Because I basically have such a terrible way of branding and marketing myself that I quite literally rely on all of my friends. Yeah. Just very casually saying something and giving me the idea, and then I just run with that. The name Facts and Fineliners was just because I was talking to my friend about what I was doing, and he said, "Oh, you should call it Facts and Fineliners." And I said, "I will," and I registered it with Companies House. That's my business name right now. It's Facts and Fineliners. So it's quite literally all. And when I talked about having a podcast, my friend said, "Oh, you should call it Thoughts and Fineliners," and I said, "Okay, cool. If I do, that'll be the name." And I'm so bad with it that I'm only now like 3.5 years in, or 3 years in to making this thing, learning how to to market it. And
they call that an elevator pitch, that little blurb that you tell someone in the elevator as you're going up a few floors. But I find it really difficult myself. Do you want to try and give your elevator pitch right now?
Yeah, good. All right, good shout. Yeah, elevator pitch. So my kind of like one sentence is that it's I had this written down. What was it? I'm going to butcher this, but it's something along the lines of educational art videos that you can binge guilt-free.
Yes, I love that. Binge guilt-free is so good because we do that so often, don't we? I don't know if you do it, but most of the world is doing it at the moment, you know, just looking at things and then you just feel icky afterwards. But you're totally right. I could watch all of your videos and feel guilt-free about that. And just come away with a bunch of facts about hippopotamus and stuff like that.
But this is the thing, because I'm so glad you said that, because because I had one of my friends, a guy called Lewis, is like one of the younger guys in our kind of dance collective. He was telling me he lives in Manchester, and he was just chilling on his sofa, and he said he watched my videos for about an hour. Yeah. And they're only like 30 seconds, 60 seconds long in it. And he said he didn't feel bad afterwards. Yeah. He just sat there and been on Instagram for an hour and just watched it video after video. And he said he loved he was talking to his friend about, because his friend was sitting there as well with him, and he said he was talking to his friend about it, and they were talking about the videos and what was in them. And I thought, and that's where the kind of the binge guilt.
Is that where they came from? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Like I said, all my friends give me my ideas.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. It's really cool to try and fill space online with something that people can kind of have that sigh of relief, like, oh, I'm glad I watched that, you know. And go on.
No, I was going to say that is so interesting, because I have this sense, this kind of this double-edged kind of sense that, because for my content on Instagram, I also create reels, and I know that reels are so bad for the brain for people who are vulnerable to that sort of thing. And yet I feel like the reels that I'm making, like, for me, I love watching them just because they're just a little snippet of nature and art and whatever. And so I have this double sense of like, am I doing something bad by putting out, you know, this very short consumable content, which we all know is bad for the brain? And yet I feel like some things, and definitely yours, I feel like with yours are actually great. They're uplifting, they're easily consumable, and they make you feel good.
Thank you. Oh man, that's really nice. That's really nice. Thank you. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like that's a really I don't know, like, positive outcome from all of this. I think for regards to just the kind of posting them on social media, is that I've kind of been raised to just think that it's a good thing to be able to contribute to society. So I quite like I said, I have a teaching job that I do a couple of days a week in a college, and I like having a job where that is communal in that sense, where you can go and contribute to people's lives in that way, as well as doing all the freelance art stuff that I do. I quite like it, and I think that trying to understand what that looks like in an online way, I think is quite challenging, at least for, cause I'm 35 now. I think it's for someone who's kind of grown up like that, it's without all that stuff. Sorry, and Facebook came in 2006, just as I left secondary school. It's that thing. So it's all of this stuff that I'm learning about is quite new in terms of how to navigate the spaces. And I think as a dad, as a teacher, and as an artist, I think it's quite nice to be able to sink into those spaces and say, cool, how can I contribute here? How can I like kind of navigate these spaces? I'm not going to be some huge influencer personality type who is going to do really crazy cool things. You know, I don't know, like jumping off a skyscraper or something like this. You know, it's like I like making art. I like telling people about this stuff. So how can I use that to kind of fill these spaces nicely? And I think that doing that is, like I said, is a nice outcome, but it's also kind of changing how I like to kind of direct myself within art. And you use the word then of this kind of positive outlook with your content, with my content, and I really like doing that. I really like creating, especially about certain subject matters like animal conservation or about animal facts, because every time I've heard an animal fact over the last 15, 20 years, it's just been devastation. It's devastation. It's humans are the worst. It's we can't do anything about it. It's like we have to contact our governments, and I just think, like, surely there has to be something that's happening that's positive that we can look to, and there are actually thousands of them. So it's just highlighting those. But
do you feel like your art is a form of quiet activism or kind of covert activism?
Oh, good question. Not even covert. I think I always say, I say this to people now, I've kind of stumbled into animal activism. I didn't mean to. It was just quite literally because I like I said, I just wanted to create things that I like learning about, and in that, because I like having a positive outlook on it, I think there have been a lot of people that have looked to me and contacted me and kind of made me aware of things that I wasn't really aware of, just saying, oh, the support you're showing for this animal or this animal is really good in this area, and I didn't realize. And then there were certain groups that started following me. So like, I think it was like WWF Belgium on TikTok started following me, and then PETA UK started following me, and I thought, oh, maybe this is, I don't know how big this thing is going to get, but maybe this is one of those situations where I'm at the stage where I'm starting to realize that I actually have bigger responsibility than I realized. And it's not just a guy in his room drawing animals and then putting them online, but maybe it's actually I'm having an influence and impact on how people think about these things now. And it's so potentially, and I think the reason I say maybe it's not covert, maybe it's overt, maybe it's I think because I'm starting to make decisions now to prioritize talking about those things in my work.
Yeah, that's interesting. The reason I said covert was because on your videos you're saying, hey, here's a fact about a rhinoceros, but you're not saying we got to save the rhinoceros. You're just saying, hey, isn't this a beautiful thing? Isn't this amazing? Isn't this amazing? Look at this bird, look at this fish, rather than just being really explicit and saying, hey, we've got to save the world and this is it. That was the reason I said that. But yeah, I think there is something really powerful in hope. And I was just as we were talking, I'm scribbling down examples. One of them and I think that activists have realized or need to realize, or some people are realizing that all the doom and gloom just makes people shut down. And David Suzuki came out with a book some time ago, Good News for a Change, I think it's called. And
write that down.
Jane Goodall has a podcast called Hopecast, and she's all about hope, and that we need hope to be able to keep going. You know, that the doom and gloom can be shocking, but it can shock people into shutting down. And I think that the beautiful thing about yours is you're not saying, hey, let's save the world. You're just saying, isn't our world amazing? And that in itself is its own powerful message.
Yeah, you're spot on. I misunderstood the question. Thanks for the clarification. It's then yes, I would say you're exactly right, because that's an intention that I have with the writing. So like I said, I teach in a college and I teach art, and one of the projects we did was about recycling, and we done a lot of research on Recycle, the organisation over here in the UK, and one of the things that I kept saying to the students was because the point of the project, was to encourage people to recycle and to do that in creative ways. And a lot of the students, when they done their work, part of it was to create a poster. It was basically to tell people the doom and gloom part. And I said to them, you cannot shame people into doing something positive. Yeah. It just doesn't work. And I think this is why a lot of kind of I don't want to use the word cancel culture, but like kind of punishments in terms of people's actions, I think is, although it feels like it should be the right thing, I think it's counterproductive in a lot of situations. And I think that if we focus on the idea of rehabilitation and as and I don't tend to speak like this, but if we approach things with love, I think it gets the required outcome or the desired outcome way more effectively. And so for me, I think the biggest lessons that I've ever learned, and I'll show you kind of this side of it, is from anime and comics. So I painted this on, I'm just showing Bethan an anime wall right now. And I painted it in my studio. And the reason I think the biggest lessons I've learned from those, regardless of all the literature I've read, of like different stories, of different biographies, the reason anime and that have the biggest impact on me is because you learn the lesson in a moment of relevance for the character. And so the character will go through a journey. There'll be a moment of, there'll be a moment of hardship. Yes, exactly. A revelation that they come to, that they need to come to get past the moment. And that inspiration is what carries them through that moment. And I realized that for me, the audience and everyone else that I talk to, we all learn the same message. And that's because the storytelling was so good. And this is where the storytelling comes from. And rather than me just saying, isn't this animal amazing? They're dying and it's your fault, you got help. I just say, cool. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we just learned a little bit more about this animal? Or oh, you do think this, so all right, let's address that. And this is actually what's happening. Isn't that cool? And I think doing that to introduce the idea of change to someone is really helpful, because there needs to be a period of acceptance. If you are asking someone to change, there has to be that. But then also it needs to be tangible. Like, you can't tell me about climate change because I don't know what to do. But you can tell me to be nicer to the animals in my garden. Like, cool. Like, obviously, like, I can do that. And I think, especially and I've lived through kind of very, very hard times financially, you can't tell me to care about global problems when I'm trying to eat.
That's it.
You know?
Yes. There's a hierarchy to what people can address, and they have to cover the basics first. And yeah, this is all so interesting. I'm fascinated by storytelling as well, and you've brought up the word storytelling a few times. I'd love to hear what storytelling means to you and the influences of stories in your life and the way that storytelling has come to the forefront of your life and your work.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think I'm only learning the importance of that for myself right now. So I can't give you a well-rounded answer, but I can think through it with you right now. I just think that it's the biggest way we communicate with each other.
Yeah.
On an abstract level. I think on an interpersonal level, I think body language is incredibly important, which is, again, why I really love dancing. It's such a good way. And animals. And I think I only came to this conclusion recently. For the life of me, I can't remember who told me about this. No, I can. It was, I'm in a building with shared studios or shared spaces. So this is my studio, but I have like 4 or 5 or more just in this section of this floor. And one of the other girls on the floor, I bumped into her like 2 weeks ago. And we were talking about the link between movement and communication. And she said to me, oh, maybe that's why we get on with animals so well. Or how we can kind of communicate with animals. And I realized that for me, that might even be the link that I'm kind of forming with animals and figures within my works. They're the two things that I like to do is or at least depict in my work as figures of humans and non-human animals as well. And I think movement is that. And I think there's a huge level of communication that the two can portray to each other, which I think is very emotive and very instinctual. But in terms of talking to other people, I think the best way to do that is through stories. Yeah. And I think we've done so throughout history, which is why I think religious books are so consistently popular throughout every generation, every millennia. I just think 'cause they hold great stories. I'm not religious myself, but I can't deny how powerful and effective and interesting these stories are. And I think that's probably where my interest has kind of been for a while. And in terms of realizing it, I don't know. I haven't given it much thought recently. I just know that I really love it. And I think with Facts and Fine Liners, it's just given me it's the first time where I've actually had an opportunity to try and start writing stories in that sense, or at least format factual information in the form of a story.
Have you always loved facts as well? Because I can see that you love learning, and I also can see that you love teaching. And this way that you're sort of bringing it all together in Facts and Fine Liners is a really cool format. But I'm wondering if were you a kid that carried around fact books?
I think no, not really. Actually,
how did it come to this, Lee?
Bethan, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. What did I do? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I've been, I don't know, actually. I don't know what kind of personality trait that is. Although I realized on TikTok early on that a large part of my audience, or a vocal part of my audience, was autistic. And
really?
Yeah, and it's like I've got a few autistic students as well, and they often tell me that I might be. So I'm wondering if there's like an aspect of that to it, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. Maybe there's like I'm trying to self-analyze, but maybe there's like a level of I don't know. But there's a level of anchoring myself to a situation. I don't know. But
yeah.
I think it's a slightly unfortunate name because I quite like exaggerating information as well and playing with stories. I think that's fun. I do that a lot with my son. But I think there's if I was to take a wild guess right now to try and pinpoint it, I would say it's probably clarification. I quite like clarity. I quite like having clarity on things, and I think understanding things or understanding how things work provides a lot of clarity for me, and which is actually why the long form content, which I'm going to switch to soon, the name of it is going to be The Art of Understanding.
I love that.
Thank you. And it's trying to kind of go through challenging concepts that people have about situations, and then using my art and my curiosity to try and understand it probably and challenge it or whatever. But I think it's clarity and understanding things, and I think facts usually provide some of that, or at least the thinking behind getting those facts.
That's really interesting. What comes to my mind is that that saying that that you hear people say sometimes, which is the best way to learn something is to teach it. And I wonder, have you heard that before?
Yes, I have, but I haven't heard it in a while. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about the way that you just said you love clarity and that you love sort of getting to the depths of things. And I wonder about your process, because you're thinking, okay, now I'm going to do something about giraffes. Then you also have to be able to put it out there, you have to learn it and teach it. It's kind of like a teaching and learning cycle. I wonder about that for you, about the learning by teaching experience.
Yeah, what's weird is that I don't consciously practice that in my work. I think it might be more intuitive, but I consciously do that when I'm in class with my students. So I teach college students, FE, further education, and it's usually 16 to 19. And what will happen is I'll bring something like a subject for the class to the class for the day. I normally leave a little bit of information out, wait till a student who I know is quite competent gets there first. I teach them, and then I get them to teach the next person, and then that next person to teach their friends on their table and whatever. And I usually get them, and I pretty much get them to teach themselves. And then I just go around and just kind of put a little bit of wind in their sails every now and then, you know. But I think like what I quite like about that specifically is that I like it when they trip themselves up, and if they don't, I trip them up on purpose. I'll give them I'll just leave out information that's really relevant that they can't figure out, or I'll give them a task that's too hard or something, because I want to teach them that it's cool to mess up, and when you mess up, there's something in there that we can play with, and that's what we're doing. Like we're playing, we're trying to understand, but we're different from scientists in that we're going to explore, stretch, and storytell and play. Like I always say to them, we're storytellers. But I say, like, we can play with things. There's a lot more room for making mistakes, and not worrying about having the end result be final and say, cool, this is what we've been working towards, and now we have an end result. We can say, yeah, cool, it didn't work. All right, let's move on. You know, and but in terms of the learning through teaching, I think, again, I don't know if it's a conscious thing I do in the videos or with the videos. But
what I was thinking with the videos is like, just even to educate yourself to be able to say what you want to say, you have to first research the facts and write the script and sort of learn it before you can teach it. So you get all this beautiful knowledge that's really juicy and like exciting for yourself as well before you can put it out there. Yeah,
it's very it's just fun. It's just what, you know, like it's hard to describe, but it's kind of like the process is, it's like what's the word? I think it's autotelic. I think it's autotelic. It's kind of like the doing the thing itself serves its purpose. You know, so like
that's a cool word.
Yeah, my friend taught it to me. He's a very clever guy, and we were talking about a lot of kind of, he's a dancer as well, but he's this guy's a genius, man. He's very clever. And we're talking about that, of like the idea of doing the thing, not for gains, not for exponential growth or anything like this, but just because doing it serves its purpose. You know, like playing, like I play five-a-side with some guys twice a week at football, and it's not because I think I'm going to be fitter, better at football. It's just because it's fun. It's just because playing with those guys is fun, and it's I think that's the same thing with kind of the learning about the videos. Like, yes, there is an end goal of making a video, but there are so many facts, or there's so much information that I leave out. That
you gather so much, you have to distill it into a short video. Yeah,
well, it's even things that aren't even relevant for the video. Like I think the last one I just put out was squirrels, for example. Right, and it's I think that was about the infanticide and the cannibalism that North American red squirrels commit. It's like, I mean, it's like common in the animal world, or at least not rare, or not exclusive to them, I should say. But they do it for a particularly cool reason, I think, or an interesting reason, I should say, not cool. But then there's that whole thing of the difference between the grey and red squirrels, and the how. For me, it's like I don't know why, but that link between the two is it really brings up the image in my mind of, maybe because of the colors or whatever, of America having a war with Britain and then breaking away and then creating America, and having their own thing, but there's still traces of us in them, and now there's traces of them in us, and how that happens, and how the invasive species of greys came over, but they brought disease with them and all this kind of stuff. And there's so much about that story or about that animal that is so interesting that I just go on tangents about and read about and write notes about, that just doesn't make it in any of the videos, just because it's like, that's not what the story is. But you're learning it anyway. How do you do that distillation process? How do you pull out the thread of what I'm going to say and what I'm going to leave out? Well, that's a good question. I've tried lots of different things over the last 3.5 years of how to do that. It was initially just because I would learn about animals just growing up for loads of different reasons. Yeah. And initially it was just, well, here are the animals that I already know about. Here are the facts that I already know. So let me just look them up and I haven't thought about them in years. Yeah. Let me look them up just to make sure that what I'm remembering is correct. And then I look them up and I say, cool. And then I just want to tell people that fact. And then it was, someone would suggest an animal and they would say, oh, this thing about them is really cool. So I'd go and learn about it. And I'd say, oh, okay, cool. But the point is to get this fact about the animal across to people. So again, it was still a similar process. Then it was about kind of more of a storytelling aspect. And it was, can I engage people in the story about this animal? So can I make them care about the animal? And then it's a case of, all right, so it's not just a fact. The people care about the fact, but it's like, why do people care about this fact or this animal more than this one? And it was figuring out this kind of stuff. And then it was kind of the intention would change. The intention of what I was trying to do would change how I approached writing the story, and then how I approached distilling the information. Yeah. And now I think, because the approach that I want is to give people a positive outlook on that thing, and I'm trying to challenge myself by doing it with stories or facts or animals that people just aren't particularly knowledgeable or interested about. Now it's a case of I write the story that I want to hear first, regardless of if the facts are right, regardless of if it's true, regardless of if it makes sense, and then I go through and then I just pick it apart and I say, cool, like what's true about this? Because I write the interesting story first, and then I go, cool, what's true about this? What's not? What did I get slightly wrong? What am I missing that needs to be included? And then I shift it. But I keep rereading it and rewriting it to make sure that it has that initial feeling. And what I tend to do is, I'm quite, I don't know how to describe myself in my class, but I'm a bit of a nightmare in terms of being able to be calm and organized. And I'll bounce around the class. We've got music playing all the time. I'm dancing. I'm making jokes. I'm poking fun at everyone in the class. They're poking fun at me. And there's they'll just randomly throughout the day, I'll tell lots of different stories, either about art, about my life, about topics that they bring up, that I bring up, or what's happened in the college or whatever. And that way of telling stories is something that I'm trying to encapsulate a bit more in the videos with a bit more calm and control, because I think the nature of that I bring to the class, it just wouldn't fit in the videos. But it's can I tell an interesting story first? Is that interesting to me? Yes. How can I communicate that and make it factual and true? That's probably the process that I'm going through right now. That is so cool. And you know what I really love is that you tell interesting stories and kind of get people to fall in love with animals, sometimes that don't have a good, that they don't have a charismatic reputation. Well worded. They don't have, they're not obviously charismatic animals. For example, rats. Or great white sharks, or eels. Yes. Tell me about this, telling stories about animals that are fascinating, but they have a bad reputation. Well, what's really interesting about that is that the animals that do have a reputation do have a very charismatic reputation tend to be quite boring. Yeah. And it's and those animals would be like the megafauna, like giraffes, elephants, rhinos, hippos, whatever. And they've got they're really beautiful, but I found that through my own experiences that to really find them interesting, you have to see them. It's the size that's impressive. It's the the grace that a giraffe will walk or run with. Like, if you've seen a giraffe running, it's like it's in slow motion the whole time. Yeah. It's really odd to look at. But these animals, in terms of their adaptations and the way that they live, which I think for me is the kind of the particular interest. Like, I think I have a growing interest in evolutionary biology, and I think that the adaptations that animals go through, I think for me is so interesting to see how creatures adapt to the world that's around them. I have thoughts of why I'm interested in that, but that's a whole other conversation. But when I look at things like elephants or giraffes, the adaptations are really interesting to me. But I think to talk about is that we're so familiar with them that it tends to be a little bit boring to kind of introduce to people, because everyone knows that giraffes have long necks, and everyone, or at least the conversation around why they have long necks, I don't actually know, which is really frustrating. But the conversation around it is that they want to reach up and eat tall food in the tree. Everyone knows that an elephant never forgets, that they have great memories, they feel vibrations in the floor or whatever through their feet. And everyone knows that hippos are really strong and they're really scary and they're really deadly to people. And everyone knows all this stuff, and that the lions across the savannah and all this stuff. But not many people know about the cool parts of an eye on a praying mantis shrimp.
Yes.
Polarizing light, right? Or the best camouflage in the animal kingdom is not a chameleon, for example, which doesn't change its colors to camouflage, but it's more of an emotive response. But it's actually things that, like cephalopods, like an octopus or a cuttlefish, these things that can change shape, color, and form instantly to be something completely different. That they can create moving patterns on their bodies to hypnotize animals. Like this stuff is crazy to me. And when you learn about it, you then have to see it. So that's why I include clips of it in the videos now. But seeing it, understanding it, and learning about it, it's the closest. When I learn about these odd creatures that people don't know about, it's like the closest that I'm learning about magical creatures.
Yeah. Right.
And then I think learning about the really interesting stuff has, I think, allowed me to start appreciating the not so interesting stuff in not so interesting animals. So I think that my most popular video was about pigeons. And it's something that I thought about, because every time I see a pigeon, I always thought, they've got this really cool iridescent color on their neck. Like that's like that purple and green that they've got. And I thought, that's really pretty. I was like, why aren't pigeons pretty? And then I remember I went to Japan in 2016, and it was the thing that stood out to me was every pigeon I saw had healthy feet. In Japan, every single one in Tokyo.
Do you know why?
I don't, but I assume, because it's based on where they roost. Because I think I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think it's because of the acidity in their nest, because they roost in cities. Obviously now, because pigeons now they've adapted to us in cities now, so they roost everywhere, which is why you've got those little spikes everywhere trying to stop pigeons from right. But I don't know whether it's from the acidity of their own poo in their nest, or if it's in the type of materials that's used within the buildings in the cities that mess them up, or just pollution in the cities, or disease that they might have picked up from somewhere. I'm not sure. I think there's a few reasons, but I don't know. But yeah, it really struck me that they had these very healthy, very bright pink feet in Tokyo, and I thought, wow, I just thought, wow, pigeons are beautiful in Tokyo, and I was like, no, pigeons are actually just beautiful. It's right, but it's just they're like, we look at them through the lens of this thing, and then
I remember conditioning about them,
and it's this thing. But I thought, okay, so what if you change the narrative? And then when I started reading about them, I got completely sidetracked about their health, and then found this whole story about pigeon fanciers, people that look after pigeons and train them and use them, and then how we used to use them for communication and war. And it was just this, and I told this very brief story in this video about pigeons and how we used to use them, and how this pigeon Cher and me saved some. I think I got it wrong in the video, actually. I think I said French soldiers, but I think it was American soldiers. Whichever one it was, I got wrong in the video. But it's the stuff that they go through, and they can literally fly hundreds of miles in just a few hours, and it's like, I mean, they're so loyal. And there were these medals of valor that pigeons got in World War II, and it was just all of this stuff. And I thought, what a crazy story about this animal that people call rats with wings.
Yes. And
I thought that's mental, that it's just, we're so horrible to these animals that have been quite literally within the last century heroes to us. Like,
yes.
it's crazy to me. And
yes.
and then, yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's beautiful rebranding.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think so. And it was, but the inspiration for that, and then reading reading all of that stuff was actually an inspiration for kind of, this was my kind of covert activism. That was the only or the first conscious part was that actual pigeon story was about how we treat homeless veterans from the war.
Interesting.
And the change. So for me, it was, now they're no longer of use to us. They're still in the cities. They're still adapted to how we live.
Interesting.
Because I met a lot of, when I was living in central London, I met a lot of homeless people, and it was just hang around and chat with them after work. And there's some homeless vets, or at least that's what they told me they were. But I found that it wasn't uncommon for veterans to come home, not know where they can live, like have spent all their money, have PTSD.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Exactly, and not know how to deal with it because there's no support system or the support system is a social thing where people volunteer for that stuff, but there's no governmental support system for it, or not any good ones. And then so that video was kind of a commentary, pretty much about them, but using pigeons as the face of that thing. So, but it was
looking at something in a new way is something that people who listen to this particular podcast are very practiced at. With nature journaling, a lot of the words you're using are like really part of a nature journaler's lexicon. You've been talking about curiosity. You've been talking about, attention, paying attention to these things that you might not have noticed, or that might be common, you might see every day, but haven't deeply looked at. And I think that's a lovely overlap with what you're doing and what a lot of the listeners are doing. This is such a beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you. I'm enjoying it a lot.
So your drawings that you put out there for Facts and Fine Liners are very detailed. You use obviously a fine liner. There's lots of beautifully detailed pen work. And I saw a video of you doing a different style of drawing, which is sketching penguins at the London Zoo, sketching from life. Tell me about these two different working styles.
Oh, Bethan, I'm so embarrassed by that video.
Why?
Because
it was amazing.
It was, you know what, right? So I'm new to painting, like the last few years, and I'm really trying to study it and learn it. But drawing I've been doing for like 20 years, right? Yeah. And I'll say, like, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a bit of a div, or a bit of a knob, but sorry for the language. But I tend not to make bad drawings. Like, I know
what you mean, because you're doing a sketch beforehand, and then you're doing the pen work on top of that.
Right, and so I feel very confident. And so that day, it was the RAs, it was the Royal Academy of Arts over here, and they hit me up, like, because I'm doing a workworkship for them in a couple of weeks.
Yes, I want to talk about that at the end, because I bought my ticket to it. I'm going to be there.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. All right, cool, perfect, thank you. I'm doing that with them in a couple of weeks, and they wanted me to. Yeah, wanted to do a little film about me, kind of being like the guy that draws the
animal sketch guy. Yeah,
right. So I said, yeah, it's cool, let's go. And I thought, okay, cool. Basically, the way that they pitched it was pretty much like the first half of the idea that I have for this long form content. And I thought, this is amazing. They wanted me to go into London Zoo, talk with a zookeeper about an animal that we're going to sketch, and learn a bit about the animal, then film me drawing it. And I was like, this is perfect. The only other extra bit that I'm going to do for long form content is come back to the studio and make a more considered piece while narrating kind of the rest of the information about the animal, right? Yeah. But I just said to him, it feels like you've read my mind. That's amazing. Yeah. Let's do it. And so they wanted to do that with me, and I thought, that's so good, because now I don't have to test it for the first time on my own with my own people helping me film it and whatever. I can just focus on being on camera, and then I can pay attention to what they're doing, take that for myself, and implement it. So I thought, cool, the only thing I don't need to worry about is doing a good drawing. I was like, I've got this, I'm fine, I'll be all right. I just need to focus on being on camera, try and be as charming as possible, whatever. Anyway, we get there, and I don't know if your listeners have been in London in January, but it sucks, man. It's so cold. It's so cold. And so I've got body warmers all on me, but I'm still shivering. And I've got because I need to draw, but outside. And we picked penguins, and
they move. They're flying underwater.
I found out they swim like 25, 30 miles an hour underwater. right? Which is a nightmare. So we go into the enclosure and we've got these boots on, and you have to wear wellies when you go in. And they say to me beforehand, just so you know, the wellies are freezing. I was like, nah, I'll be fine. I've got thick socks on. I don't know what. I don't know why.
Why are they so cold?
I have no idea, but my toes, I couldn't move them. So I'm sitting, I'm like, my toes are horrible. I'm walking in the enclosure and I'm freezing. I've got these fingerless gloves on because I want to be able to grip the pencil.
You've got to use your pen. Yeah.
Right? My fingers are freezing at this point. I'm trying to be charming on camera. I'm trying to pay attention to what they've got going on in the background. There's penguins in front of me. This is like an overwhelming experience. I get to like touch and like meet a penguin and be around them, but also I'm freezing. It's horrible. And I'm like, oh, but I want this to go well. And they say, cool. I talk to them. The interview goes well. Cool. They say, cool, let's walk around, let's draw some penguins. And then for some reason, none of the penguins wanted to stand close to me while we were drawing. So I was like, all right, fine. We'll just, and I tried sketching, and so I was sketching for like 20 minutes because I told him beforehand I could do like 3 or 4 completed drawings, the sketches that would look good within an hour. 20 minutes in, I've done like a bunch of preliminary sketches that are just crap. I can't draw. I can't hold the pencil, so I have to hold it like I'm a wizard and try and sketch
like a wand,
like it's a wand. And I'm trying to sketch but my hand can't move properly because it's too cold. Anyway, I'm standing there doing crap drawings and I'm sweating and I'm like, how am I sweating? And it's cold and it sucks. And then he comes over to me and one of the guys, the producer, he looks at the sketches and says, "So do you think we could do anything better?"
Did not say that.
And I just said, "Man, I'm trying. Like, I can't know if I could do this." So I said, "All right, cool. It's not working. I can't see them. Let's just go over and let's just go by the window so I can see them swimming," because they just kept swimming past the window. So they've got like 60 penguins in this enclosure, and they're just rapidly swimming back and forth. So I'm like, "All right, cool. We'll go sit down and I'll do that." So now I'm sat on the floor. I'm trying to sketch them. And they're whizzing past, and so you see them for about half a second, and it's kind of like when you're on a train and you go past a platform, and what you try to do is you try and spot a sign or something that you can see, but you have to move your head and whip it past. And I was trying to follow penguins, so I started sketching one, and then I sketched it in one direction, but they kept flying back the other way. So what I had to do was I'd have to wait till they all swam past, watch them all, find one, spot it, whip my head past, remember what I saw, add that to the sketch, and it was just... And
plus you've got the guy's voice in your mind saying, can you just do better than you're doing right now?
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm just like... Because they said this isn't going to advertise the sketch club, and I thought... Yeah, but you're going to put it on your website.
Yeah.
They're going to see this, and people are going to be like, I'm not going to pay to learn to draw from this guy. This guy can't even draw a penguin.
But it looks great what you produced in the end.
Oh,
tell me.
Yeah, you're being so polite.
No, I am not. It actually looked really cool.
Oh, thanks. All right. Well, it was. Oh, I couldn't believe it. And all I could do was laugh. I just thought, this is so bad, and they're going to put this up. And I was like, the first time that I actually get to work with the RA, and I'm showing them these crappy drawings of penguins, and I'm furious. And I was like,
it's a real departure from your other style, which is very considered and very detailed. And like I said, you're drawing fine line of pen over pencil sketch that you've done from a photograph. It's such a departure from what you've been doing.
So this is the interesting part. So it's a massive departure from that, but that's just one of the ways that I like to draw, and that's just what I've been showing people. So So like I said earlier, I've been, from 14, so about 21 years, I've been opening up books, and because even when I didn't do art creatively, I still drew at home in my personal time and at work. So for 20 years, all I've been doing is looking at ways and techniques of how to draw better and more effectively or different ways, and copying different artists and their styles. And there are artists that have influenced me massively. So David Downton's a fashion illustrator. I couldn't stop copying him for a while. He's an old English fashion illustrator that over here. Comic book artists like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, that influenced my old uni tutor, Mark Lehman. He's a comic book artist. He massive influence on the way that I would approach things. And he told me that I used to do loads of sketches, and kind of the original comic books, what they would do is with the printers, they couldn't read blue ink, so they would do all their sketches in blue. So they have these specific blue pencils that were for comic book artists, and so we all in our class, I think we wound them up. We all got blue pencils and started sketching them just because it looked cool. So I did that, and then the late a Korean artist, Kim Jung-gi. He'd done all of these massive fisheye comic book style images with just brush pens and just off the top of the dome, and all this stuff. All of these things would influence me, and then when I was living in central London for about 4 years. For about 2.5 of those years, most weeks I would go to a life drawing class, and just do figure drawings all the time in pen, pencil, charcoal, whatever. And then over the years, just kind of using different materials and different approaches, different styles, to create different aesthetics or end results of the images. And it's that's why I kind of went into it thinking, pencil.
Yeah, but you didn't have to do all that on TV. It's the
true. well, penguins are swimming away from me. Yeah, it was very tough, but it was a good challenge because since then I've just been going out, and on the way to my studio there's loads of pigeons outside. It's in southeast London, outside one of the stations near here. So just go and draw pigeons and just practice there because obviously because for the workshop that we'll talk about later, but we'll be drawing live animals. So yeah, it's I need to make sure I can go in and not mess that one up.
Let's talk about that now, because the Saturday Sketch Club is something that I've been a participant in many, many times. And also I was like excited to see you there. So the Saturday Sketch Club is it monthly?
Yes.
A monthly session run by the Royal Academy of Arts. And so they have a live demo, and I've done life drawing on the Saturday Sketch Club, but they also do I can't remember the ones I've done before, but like it might be urban sketching or it might be this or that. But yeah, tell the listener about your session.
Yeah, so it's going to be very cool. I'm actually meeting with them or next week, I think. We're just contacting them today just to finalize kind of the specifics of it. But the concept is really simple. It's just that we're going to draw a bird or birds in the session. So we'll bring hopefully we're going to bring this there's a guy who has owls basically, and he's going to bring owls down to the RA.
That's amazing.
I mean, they're like, not only are they beautiful, but a lot of the bird trainers that I've met tend to kind of know the animals and their behaviors, and I think they're providing us with animals that are not going to move as much as penguins swimming through the water. But yeah, it's going to be very cool. I mean, one of the first things that I said to them when we were talking about it was that we need to bring someone in that's going to make sure that the animals aren't stressed. We have to, when you're drawing live animals, or when you're working with animals, you have to make sure that the animals are calm and cool. And especially with the work that I do, I can't sit there and put animals in a bad environment for the sake of doing drawing with all the work I do is talking about conservation and looking after them. So so was that they were really cool, and they just said, cool, let us handle it. I gave them some contacts that I had with regard to animal handlers, and they're just going to facilitate everything. But from the setup, from what I'm aware of, is that I will be drawing and guiding everyone through how I approach drawing animals, with a live animal there, an owl probably. It might be a falcon or something, but it will be a bird in the studio with me. The team will run the online sketch club. I'm not familiar with it, so what I've been told is that there will be a team running. I'll be mic'd up and I'll be able to talk to everyone and guide you through. I'll talk about what I'm going to approach it with in a moment, but then people will be able to ask questions and I'll be able to respond. And so if you want to engage with me, ask me stuff about the process or what I'm discussing, what I'm teaching, please do. And then afterwards, what I believe will happen is that people, because it's a sketch along class.
So just to clarify, it's you in a studio, but it's broadcast out to the internet. That was my fault. I wasn't clear about that. But you can access it from wherever you are in the world. And also if you sign up for it and it's not in your time zone, you can watch the recording later. So that's a beautiful thing that so many people from around the world are going to be able to access it.
Yes, and this is why you're the best for this because, like I said earlier, I'm terrible at marketing and advertising myself. Like in my head, I'm thinking, cool. When I'm in the room, it's going to be the best. Like we're gonna have good time, jokes. We're drawing, but the build up and the talking about it. You're so right. It's it'll be me in the room at the RA with a small team and the animal handler and the animals. But it will be broadcast online. Exactly right, to everyone. So people will be participating online. It'll actually only be me in the studio with the animals drawing. And then I'll be talking to everyone online about what we're drawing and what I'm going to take everyone through. And like you said, if you have signed up and it's and you can't make it at the time just because of time zones or you just for whatever reason you have access to it afterwards. And then I think we're going to do this at the time. I think for the last 15-20 minutes people will show me what they've done. They'll send in pictures and then I get to give feedback. That's a beautiful
feature of it. Yeah. People can I think they post them on the Saturday Sketch Club Facebook page or some way. I can't remember, but there's some way for them to share their sketches, which is such a cool feature. Like makes the whole thing interactive. Yeah,
it's really cool. And I think it's just, you know what? There's I spoke to an artist recently, and I think the reason I love this part specifically is because I was filming an artist for a friend's fashion brand, and I was talking with her, and she said she loves to go and see other artists' work, and specifically because she likes to find out, and she thinks it's important to find out where you sit within your ecosystem, and especially if you're an artist, your artistic ecosystem. And I think being able to exchange works and be able to exchange opinions of works, or doing kind of like group crits, or even just talking with each other about what we like and what we don't like, or giving each other tips, I feel like it really sets you within your ecosystem. And I think that's something that I'm actually looking quite forward to, not specifically to give critiques or anything like this, but just to see other people's work and just to kind of communicate about that stuff. So that's like and even just communicating with people about the lesson that I'm going to deliver as well. Yeah, which is really cool. But I'm also, after I've spoken with the RA next week, I'm just going to put up a little video for a couple of minutes to post it on my socials, Insta and TikTok, just to let people know, like exactly what you've just said, how it's going to run, and then what I'm going to offer as well in the lesson. So yeah. Really cool. I
love the term artistic ecosystem. That's just such a beautiful thing, and I absolutely agree. And I give workshops, nature journaling workshops, and the bit of the workshop at the end where everyone's like sharing what they did. For me, that's like the best. That's like that's where you learn. We're actually sketching the same subject, but we tackled it from a completely different angle, and you pick up tips and you get inspired, and that that sharing is just super valuable.
Yeah, it's just because I assume we're all aware of the idea that we don't perceive the world as it is. We perceive it through our lens and how we interpret things, right? So like you said, you can have 2 people or 5 people or 20 people doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And even being told to approach it in the same way and still produce different results every time. It's fascinating. And one of the things I do when I teach kind of like drawing 101 with me in my classes is that I get easels out. So I make everyone listen to music, stand up, we talk together, and I just make them get a charcoal stick and they hold it in their thumb and forefinger at the bottom, so they're not allowed to break it. That's the rule.
Okay, interesting.
But all they have to do, it's like a big A2 sheet of paper, is for like 20 minutes just draw lines. Yeah. That's it. And I make them just draw lines till they're so bored of it that they're just talking and they're just doing it kind of like absent-mindedly.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I then show them, and we kind of take a step back and we look at them, and every single time, every single person's pages look different.
That's fascinating.
It's
with just lines.
Just lines. It's so interesting. And then what I do is I say to them, okay, cool, now let's start like describing it, but you can't use art specific terms, so you have to just use normal words. And then they start saying things like cramped or claustrophobic or scary or angry or calming or organized, and I say to them, oh cool, we can communicate about this, but we can also just read art or images just like we would writing. You just have to understand what it is that you're looking for and how you're describing these things. And then we also say we can also describe each other's personalities by looking at these. You know, like this is just, you can see a lot of that person, and then you can make assumptions and you can kind of connect with people. And it's an oddly really good way to kind of have an icebreaker in a class whilst teaching them how to draw as well. It's like it's really cool, but it kind of again sets them in their mini ecosystem within the class, their peer space, by getting them to share that about each other, but unknowingly. It's really cool.
That is amazing. Do you know, actually one of the questions I often ask is, do you feel like your personality is reflected in your art? So if you're very particular, do you have a very meticulous kind of style? And it's interesting to hear you say that you can read someone's personality in just in the lines that they make. Do you feel like your personality comes through in your art?
Yeah, I think it has to. But what's really weird is that I think it's almost like it's unavoidable. You know, like a natural thing for anyone doing anything creative initially is, I want to find my style.
Yes.
And what I keep saying to everyone is, but you don't need to find it. Yeah. You just need to be aware of it, and then when you're aware of it, you can develop it. And I keep saying, especially with this drawing lines thing, I can use that as an example and just say, look, like, your style is your approach to things. It's how you do things, right? And you could almost say that it's reflective of who you are as a person. And if you just concentrate on just doing the thing, that will just happen. And if we're adept at reading those things with an artistic discernment, we can then say what your style, quote unquote, is, right? And how you appear in your work. And again, I think it's unavoidable. I think it's no different. And I use this analogy a lot, which I'll do in the workshop in the Sketch Club. But as I attribute image making or art to language all the time. And you could find mirrors in it. So you could say that vocabulary is your obviously the words that you use, but it's like, it would be the marks that you make, for example, on the page, or the techniques or whatever. The grammar is how you structure your sentences. It's the composition of the image. It's how you put things in order. And then I would say that your ability to look like that thing, so to look like someone who is a good nature journalist, or your ability to look like someone who is a good draftsman, a good drawer, that's your accent. That's your ability to sound like a native, right? And you can change that based on different things, right? And if we're looking at it like that, the point of a language is to communicate, right? It's to be able to get what's in my head to yours and yours to mine. And if we're looking at art as this thing, as this language, a way to communicate, then you don't need to worry necessarily about having a style of communication. You can just do your best to communicate what's in your mind, and your style, again, quote unquote, will just appear. Yes. You know that, and yes. So I think yes, to answer your question in short, but only because I think it's unavoidable. Yes. I think it always happens. Yes. Yeah.
You have told me that you're terrible at self-promotion, but I want to ask you to promote yourself a little. You have this beautiful online store where people can purchase prints of your animal drawings, and the prints themselves are printed on very high quality paper, so it feels as if they're going to be holding an original art piece, although it's a print. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your online store and what people can expect, and I will leave links in the show notes for the podcast where people can find your
Thanks
store.
So much, Bethan. So I'm trying my best to what I've got up right now as the store I'm really happy with, but I'm trying my best to adjust it based on what I'm trying to do with the whole Facts and Fine Liners concept right now, to include more works in and get more works to more people in more ways. But at the moment, I do have fine art prints, and my job was to make sure that they were affordable and accessible as much as possible. And I basically spent about a year, maybe a year and a couple of months, just doing a ton of research on everything in terms of quality of prints, in terms of what people like when they buy art prints, like how to create them in the most sustainable way, but also in the most pragmatic way as well that I could, and get to people whilst also still obviously earning some money from it as well, so I can support myself. But I basically kind of came up with something that I'm really, really happy with. And I work with this company called the Print Space. They've got an office in London, Germany, and then they've just opened up one in New York. So it's I just love how they work. They're really, really focused on getting high quality prints, and they pretty much separate their printmaking between fine art prints and photography. Okay. And yeah, so I basically, there are two types of prints that I make for drawings, my ink drawings, and then for paintings as well. I use different papers, different types of papers for them both that fit. I've done a lot of testing with them as well. But as you can tell probably from the way that I draw and the facts that I talk about and the information that I talk about, I'm a stickler for certain details, and I don't want to put things out until I'm really happy with them. And I figure if I'm putting stuff out for free, there's a room for me to mess around and get things wrong. But if I'm asking people to spend their money on things, then I want to make sure that every single time they open it, they go, "Oh, that's nice." And
that's beautiful.
That's my thing. And like I said, like you said, sorry, my thing was I want it to look like an original.
Yeah.
I want you to have that and look at that, and the prints do, which I'm really happy with. So
that's so exciting. Yeah. Lee, it has been amazing to talk to you. I've just enjoyed this conversation so very much. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Same. Thanks. This has been really lovely. A really lovely way to break up the day. Thank you so much. And just spend some time talking with someone that I haven't met before. It was very cool.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lee. I was really inspired by this unique combination of art and information. I don't think I've seen this done before, and Lee's storytelling makes it come alive in such a great way. The style of art that Lee shares with Facts and Fineliners is very detailed with fine pen work, but this is only a small part of his creativity, and he actually has a really eclectic range of styles which incorporate a mix of techniques and media. And I encourage you to dive in and explore not only his nature art, but also the street dance inspired art and everything else that he creates. I've put a link in the show notes to where you can find Facts and Fineliners on social media, as well as the online store where you can explore prints of Lee's animal art. Also, please do sign up for his session for the Saturday Sketch Club with the Royal Academy of Arts, where he'll be drawing live birds in the studio. There's a link in the show notes for the podcast where you can get your ticket. I've participated in the Saturday Sketch Club many times, and it's so much fun. It's exciting to know that there are people from all around the world sketching at the same time. And if it's not in your time zone, you can watch the recording later. I'll be there sketching along with Lee and with you, if you can make it. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.